so comfortable with you. I feel like I'll always love you. I'll always love you. Always.
We get ready for Game 3 of the World Series. Mad Max is back. Plus, the Calgary Flames. Not great. Victor Wembanyama. Very great. And the NFL season. Very weird. We'll get into that, plus some UFC and wrestling. Oh, it's good to be back. Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. All right, welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for hanging out today. Like I said, we got a lot to get into on the show today. Also, coming at you from a bit of a different perspective, I had set some stuff up for some recording in when I was visiting my family in Saskatchewan and changed how some of this looks and forgot to change it back. So we're getting me from a bit of a different angle today, but I don't think there's anything too out of the blue hanging out behind me. Hopefully not anyway. But either way, thank you guys so much for hanging out today, whether you're tuning in after the fact or watching live on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. We got the Hanging in the Dome, Chilling with Jerome shirts that are available right now over on seaofdead403.ca. All the proceeds going toward Kids Sport. We were at the Eric Francis Pizza Pig Out over last week and just had an absolute blast with that. A lot of people really excited about the shirts and people buying them quicker than we can make them. So get your orders in as quickly as you can. And of course, we are fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Huge shout out in the chat, Deeds. Hitting 20 with the subscriber now for 20 months. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for that, Deeds. Toxic saying in the chat, the GOAT is back. Yes, Max Scherzer returns tonight for the Blue Jays. We got baseball, hockey, football, basketball, UFC, wrestling. This is the type of show that I dreamed of when we made the show. So excited to get into it. Whatever y'all want to talk about, throw it in the chat. I may not get to it right away, but I promise I'll get to it before the show wraps up. If it's relatively related to sports or something I want to talk about. If it's one of those, hey, wow, come join this, whatever. Probably not going to talk about that. But if anything you want to chat about, throw it in there and we can have a good time with all of that. So, enough rambling. Let's get into the show. Game 3 of the World Series goes tonight, and a best of 7 is now a best of 5, with the Blue Jays heading to Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers for this third game with a crazy person on the mound. Can he match what the Dodgers just had in pitching in game number 2? We'll find out and break it all down right now as we talk some baseball. Game 3, World Series tonight, as the Blue Jays get set to take on the Los Angeles Dodgers. And before we get into what we saw in Game 2, what we're looking for in Game 3, all of that, it feels like there's a buzz to this World Series. And obviously, for me, they're going to be Blue Jays World Series stuff, And growing up in a Blue Jays household, being able to go back to Saskatchewan, watch the American League Championship Series with my parents, and being able to live that moment of Toronto getting to this World Series game, there's going to be a bit of a different feel for me. And on social media, it feels like, obviously I have created my own echo chamber because that's how social media works, but it does feel like there's just a little bit of a something extra, especially in Canada, around this World Series. And it's been an interesting first couple of games where you get the big moment with Barger's grand slam in game number 1, and then just a masterfully pitched game in the second one with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And now you have some intrigue going into this third one, and now you're getting into a little bit of more of the storylines instead of just, it's David versus Goliath, with the Blue Jays being one of the highest payrolled Davids in the history of a David versus Goliath matchup. But instead of that sort of thing, now it's the Dodgers are taking some shots at, I don't know if there was intent there or not, holding us up with American people at the border. But regardless, it's starting to get into a little bit more of the feud territory instead of the feeling out that you normally get in a World Series, where even with interleague play, these teams don't play each other all that often. So I'm excited to see what Game 3 brings. And before we get into the breakdown of that, we have to go back to game number 2. Yoshinobu Yamamoto with one of the brilliant performances, just a brilliant postseason, and who knows if he gets back in, depending on how the rest of this series goes, but potentially an exclamation point on a star-making postseason run for the Dodgers' phenomenal starter out of Japan. You can critique the Blue Jays all you want about the approach and this, that, or the other thing. I think game 2 comes down to Yamamoto was brilliant. I don't think this was a Blue Jays team that made a whole lot of mistakes or anything like that. It was just the excellence that was coming at them in the form of Yamamoto. And look, Toronto, it has been discussed throughout this entire postseason. The Blue Jays make you have to be perfect as a pitcher. And Yamamoto was basically perfect. So you can talk about this, that, or the other thing, but sometimes you just kind of got to tip the cap and be like, yep, that guy was better. That guy did it in game number 2, and he's the reason why the Dodgers are heading home in a 1-1 split instead of being down 2-0, because the guy on the other side was absolute nails as well with how well Kevin Gausman pitched in game number 2. I thought he was fantastic. I thought, like, almost any other game this year, certainly this postseason, and Gausman is the one who is being discussed, but just Yamamoto's brilliance outshines him. And it felt like even the pitches that the Dodgers hit, they felt like good pitches. Like, it didn't feel like Gausman made a whole lot for mistakes in that one. I know the Will Smith, like, Kirk is kind of setting up outside and it ends up on the inside part of the plate. I think we are at a point now where the catcher sets up, I'm not buying that that's where that's supposed to go. There's so much deception with everything that is happening that I don't buy that necessarily he missed by the entire width of the plate and Smith was able to take him for a ride. And still, it was a bit of a jam shot that Smith was able to get the hands in, crank it out, and give the Dodgers a very important home run. But you look at the Freeman double in the first, where he has mowed through Shohei, he sits down Betts, and then gets to 2 strikes on Freeman, who just reaches the bat out and just does a little with the wrist, and off into the outfield, gets a double. Will Smith hits a single, not hard, but not a laser beam up the middle, and all of a sudden it's a 1-0 game. And then a couple of home runs. I thought Gausman was great. And I know he said, like, look, we lost, so obviously I didn't pitch well enough. There's still better for me out there because look at what that guy did. But I think that is, holding someone to a bit of an unfair stature. Like, that was maybe the second best pitching performance of the playoffs, and that's behind the complete game that Yamamoto had against the Brewers. I guess you savage against the Yankees could be thrown in there in game number 2 of the LDS as well. But still, one of the best pitching performances we've seen all postseason. Gausman had to go up with. I thought he was great. Dodgers just made some really good plays. That's really what that game came down to. Is it wasn't a whole lot of mistakes from Toronto. It was just the Dodgers made their plays off of some good work from the Blue Jays. So I don't think there's anything that Toronto needs to really hang their head about. But the one thing that I think concerns you the most from a Toronto standpoint is game 2, I think, really highlights what makes this Dodgers team so difficult. And it's the glitz and the glamour of LA with the 4 aces that they have in the starting rotation and then the stars at the top. And it's Shohei and Betts and Freeman. But like, Freeman gets the double that kind of gets things going, but Shohei and Betts haven't really been big factors that much in this series so far. When you look at where the damage was done, it was by Will Smith. It's by Max Muncy. And this is where the Dodgers can get the Blue Jays, is that Toronto has this deep lineup and they make you work. The Dodgers have this deep lineup, but it's deep with all-stars. And maybe Ernie Clement with this experience rockets to a Max Muncy level or something along those lines. But this is what these guys can do. And so you are 1-1 in the series going back to Los Angeles, and Shohei hasn't made an impression in this series yet. Mookie Betts, for the most part, hasn't really made an impression in this series yet. That is where I get concerned from a Toronto standpoint, is those guys don't really have to, or haven't really had to step up yet. And now they only need 3 more times and the series is over. So that's where I get a little bit concerned from a Toronto standpoint. Toxic in the chat on on Twitch. When you have 4 number 1 starters, it's going to be a battle. Yeah, you know it's going to be. Like, the Blue Jays knew coming in, this wasn't going to be a cakewalk to a World Series championship. They weren't going to win this on vibes alone. Or like Haley McGoldrick tweeted out after game 1, the power of friendship wasn't just going to take the Blue Jays to a World Series title. This was going to be hard. And it was fun that Toronto had home field advantage and had it set up where they wouldn't have to win any more games in the States to win a World Series. Now they do. But it probably wasn't going to be Blue Jays in 4. We probably knew that coming in. But this game 3 is a big one. Let's get ready for tonight's game. Game 3, World Series. Tyler Glasnow taking on Max Scherzer. Scherzer was back to his old dog self in the ALCS, which made me feel good because I put the video out that the Blue Jays made a mistake in the ALDS, not going with him. Everyone pointed to what he did in the regular season. And again, I would like to point to a number of examples about how playoff baseball is just different. And once that goes from regular season to postseason, something flips. And for some guys, that's good. For some guys, it's not good. For Max Scherzer, it's great. And he came out and he dominated a good Seattle Mariners lineup in game number 4 of the American League Championship Series. And he gets the viral moment. It will be iconic among several iconic moments that the Blue Jays are going to have now from this postseason run. But it's Scherzer yelling right in the face of John Schneider, telling him where to go and how quickly to go there. They need that guy again. Maybe not screaming. John Schneider probably doesn't want to get yelled at again. But they need him to be a dog tonight. And I am kind of assuming that we get a little bit more of a bullpen type of a game from the Blue Jays. I don't think Scherzer's going 9 or anything like that. No, I don't think he's going 1. I don't think he's the opener so that they can then go to Brendan Little in the second inning or anything like that. But I would imagine that tonight for the Blue Jays, this is a bit more of what modern pitching looks like, and not in a good way, where you have Scherzer go 2 times through the order, wherever that ends up, he does that, and then it's the bullpen piecing it together the rest of the way. They've only used all the big dogs once, right? Like Varland only pitched once. Hoffman's only pitched once. Dominguez has only pitched once. I would put Fluharty into the big category now. I think he's only gone once, but either way, they have their bullpen is rested. They're coming off of a day off. They can load those guys up and work their way through it. So I wouldn't anticipate Scherzer going 7, and then it's Fluharty, Dominguez, and Hoffman. Bob's your uncle ball game. Blue Jays take it. I think this is going to be a bit more of a piece together game for Toronto. And they are going to hope that it has to be on the Dodgers side as well, because while we can fret about where the Blue Jays bullpen is at in this particular moment, it is leaps and bounds better than where the Dodgers are. The Dodgers bullpen makes the Blue Jays look like the 15 Kansas City Royals with Wade Davis and Greg Holland coming out and just mowing people down. That Dodgers bullpen is trouble, and it's going to be, I think, very important for Toronto to battle in there and do the same thing they did to Blake Snell in game number 1 and work these counts, get into the bullpen, and really try to take advantage of the weak spot on this Dodgers team. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup tonight. Glasnow is so all over the place. And it is kind of like Blake Snell. Not so much with the location things. Like Snell, I heard a preview going into the game saying that Snell, of all the pitchers left, he was the one who had the best chance of throwing a no-hitter. And now I think that's obviously Yamamoto. But Snell, he has the best chance of doing that. He also has the best chance of not making it through the first inning. Like, he can be a little bit all over location-wise, and the Blue Jays are a bad matchup for him. Glasnow isn't as much. It's just a little inconsistent, but his highs are about as high as you can get in the sport. So it's going to be a really difficult matchup tonight, and I can't wait to see how the Blue Jays battle through this one. Toxic in the chat, do you think today is a must-win for the Blue Jays? I don't. I don't believe that, no. I think, like, obviously, going down 2-1 makes it quite difficult. But I do still think if they go down 2-1 in this series, you are still coming back with Bieber, Savage, and Gosman looking to win 3 games. And what we just discussed, like they're a tough matchup for Blake Snell. Glasnow, we'll see. Yamamoto, I don't want to deal with that. But I feel pretty good that you'd be down 2-1. You'd have your three big guys going in the next few games, and you only have to deal with Yamamoto one more time, right? So that is where I think the Blue Jays sit right now. So no, I don't view this as a must win. They can't go down 3-1. Like, you can't lose back to back here. I don't want to do the Mariners thing where the Jays are going back to Toronto down 3-2. I don't want to have to win back-to-back games against this Dodgers team. So this one, no. The next one would be if this one doesn't necessarily go their way for the Blue Jays. Also, Wells, I think, in the kick chat saying hello, and then bro is how I read that. Anyway, so yes, hello. Thanks for popping in today. The other big part of this for Toronto is Bo Bichette is back in the lineup now. And look, he is absolutely doing everything he can to be a productive member of the Blue Jays. And I think he was. Like, he wasn't Bo Bichette in capital letters, like, oh wow, watch out, here come the Blue Jays because Bo's back. But he did enough. Like, the play at second, it's phenomenal. To have not played the position since 2019, and now for the best play of the game to happen on the shortstop side of second anyway, it's pretty funny. But to range over, get that, and chuck it across, I thought, like, he did as well as you could possibly have hoped for Bo Bichette to do that. It did seem like he's a bit behind, timing-wise, on some of those pitches. And now, he is one of the best in the league at going the other way. So, adapting to the situation wasn't that big of a deal for him. I would guess that the timing aspect of it gets better as this goes along. Like, you have to remember, these would be, in the regular season, these would be rehab starts for him. Honestly, these wouldn't be games for him right now if this was the regular season. The only reason he is playing is because it is the World Series. Like, I get that they said he made some big strides in the last few days. I'm sure he can run the bases without having to pull up limping. But to suggest that this guy is anything close to 100% would be whistling past the graveyard. So I don't think that Bo is really going to get to Bo levels in this series, but that doesn't mean he can't be productive. And when you look at what they're getting out of second base anyway, whether it be Isaiah Kiner-Falefa or whoever, it's still an upgrade, and it's still a threat, and it's still someone you have to pay attention to, and it's still someone you have to be worried about, right? Like, Freddie Freeman could barely walk in the World Series last year, and he still hit a grand slam in game number 1 to walk off against the Yankees. George Springer still can barely walk, but he hit a big home run against the Seattle Mariners in game 7 of the American League Championship Series that will live in Blue Jays lore forever, regardless of how the next 4 to 5 games go for these two teams. Bo Bichette certainly has that in him, but just to be able to extend the lineup and have that danger there behind Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is enough for Bo Bichette right now and the Toronto Blue Jays. One more time, Toxic saying that play surprised a lot of people. Oh man, I'm sure it surprised him. You know, like, he seems like he's very sure of himself, but to be able to just, like, range over, make the play, and just like that's really impressive stuff. So yeah, that's super surprising to pull that kind of a thing off. And I'm sure just having it for contract negotiations going into a big free agent year for him now, to be able to say, look, I can play second base too. Like, pay me like a shortstop. For sure, pay me like a shortstop. But someone said, like, Bo, because of the lack of strength at that position right now, he's already, like, top 4 or 5 best second baseman in the American League, based off of one play and one game in the World Series. So great to have him back in the lineup for sure. Gonna move on to other subjects now, but if you want to keep talking Blue Jays, feel free in the chat. We'll get back to it, I promise. Or leave it in the comments after the fact and we can chat about it then. But yeah, very excited to talk all things Blue Jays and a lot more coming up on it as the week goes on. The great thing about this Blue Jays run has been everyone sharing in the love. So why wouldn't you share this video with some of your Blue Jays fan friends? Want to keep the conversation going, the Couch Potato Diary. It helps the show grow a lot as well. When YouTube sees that you're sharing these videos, they're like, hey, more people want to see this. So would really help me out a lot if we could share this with a few of your Blue Jay fans as we get ready for game number 3 tonight. Let's move now to the world of the National Football League, and it is week 8, so things are getting a little bit serious now. We're approaching the midway point of the NFL season, and some teams needed some big-time performances, and they got them. Some teams had surprising big-time performances, and some teams just had devastation. It was a very strange, very all-over-the-place, but certainly noteworthy week in the NFL, so let's talk about it. Week 8 in the books in the NFL, and the big thing for me coming out of week number 8 was a few teams that desperately needed to get in the win column got into the win column. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills. Certainly not starting with the most intriguing game of the day as they whooped that ass of the Carolina Panthers a lot to 9. The Bills needed this. Back-to-back losses. Next week, they're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. They needed to look strong against a Panthers team that is playing better this year, but isn't what we would categorize as a good football team. And the Bills went in and treated them as such. They dominated this one. And it is, again, a reminder of how this team can beat you, because Josh Allen can throw that Superman cape on and he can be dominant. Or he can throw for 163 yards, but James Cook in the backfield is going to torch you for 200 yards, helping a wife to a big win in the Vampire League, helping others to big victories, I'm assuming as well, and helping the Buffalo Bills get this. They are a complete team. Do they probably need another number one or a number one wide receiver? Yes. Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe thing to say, but they still have so many ways that they can beat you. And this was a really important kind of a get-right spot for this team going into another clash of the Titans with the Kansas City Chiefs next weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles also needed this one this week. A lot of negative headlines around this team. A.J. Brown's a distraction. The tush-push is stupid. Why are you doing it 4 times in a row? Hey, your coach is still kind of crazy. By the way, your best player doesn't really look like your best player anymore, and your quarterback, not a lot of people love him right now. Instead, they come out against a Giants defense that I think needs to be respected, and they just ran it down their throat. Saquon with 150 yards. Tank Bigsby goes off as well for 100 yards in that game. Devonta Smith with a big day in the receiving core for the Eagles, and they come out, and we'll talk about the Giants side of this in a little bit and the sadness that happened over there, but this was exactly what the Eagles needed to do. It got them back to playing Philadelphia Eagles football instead of trying to force the ball to A.J. Brown, and to see that this offensive line, against a pretty good defensive front, but that this offensive line can help Saquon Barkley get that type of a performance again. It keeps that threat there and keeps the Eagles, I think, in that championship tier. It's against the Giants. So this isn't, okay, all problems are solved now, they beat the Giants, but they needed a game like this really, really bad to change that conversation. And I think the Green Bay Packers needed this as well in their game against the Steelers. Pittsburgh maybe got theirs a little bit more than the Packers would want in their matchup with Aaron Rodgers on this defense. But the important thing is that the offense gets back on track. Jordan Love, 360 yards and 3 touchdowns in the win. This is the type of performance we've been expecting from these guys all season long. And it's the type of performance that makes us frustrated when they are out here not being able to put the Dallas Cowboys away and hanging around in the fourth quarter in games with the Bengals and the Arizona Cardinals. It's because we know that there is an elite offensive football team in there, and they just don't show it as often as we would like them to. I do think it is a bit of a reminder that Jordan Love, while he does have this elite level ceiling, is still pretty young in this process and really hasn't proven a lot. And I'm saying this to me more than to anyone. It's not a critique of the overall media sphere in the NFL. I was the one who, before the Micah Parsons trade, was saying this is a Super Bowl team, and one that with Jordan Love being able to take that step should be able to really be a dominant offensive force. And you kind of forget that while we just keep projecting, okay, and now he's going to take a step, and now he's going to take a step. We haven't seen those steps yet from him. We would like to, and this was on the way to doing that, but we need to see it more, and we need to see it consistently. And we just haven't really from him. And I think sometimes we forget that because it's the Packers and just because we've always had great quarterback play from the Green Bay Packers. So this was a bit of a reminder of what this team could be. I am still worried about this defense, though. Like, you trade for Micah Parsons, you make the moves that they made, you have the talent that they have. This should be a much better defensive football team than the one that we are seeing right now. So that's still something that's kind of in the back of my mind a little bit around this team. But really, what a weird Sunday this was in the National Football League. When you look at the Dolphins blowing out the Falcons, who are now officially the most difficult team to get a read on, maybe in sports right now. When you look at some of the great performances that they have had, they beat the Bills, but they've lost to the Panthers and to now the Miami Dolphins by a combined 1,000,000 points. I don't understand it with this team at all. And I get there were injuries for Atlanta this week, but not that many injuries. Good Lord. The Jets won. So we will not have an 0-17 team for the first time in NFL history. They go out and get the job done against the Bengals, who this was a bit of a coming back down to earth moment for them. Like, hey, Joe Flacco, if he plays them, like Joe Burrow could come back for the playoffs. This could be a sneaky kind of, they lost to the Jets. Snap back to reality for the Bengals. And then the Ravens apparently don't need Lamar Jackson anymore. They get a win over the Bears, and the Texans don't need an offensive line, as maybe the injuries to the San Francisco defense catching up with them a little bit. So it was just a whole lot. We've had Chris Harris on here in the past. He likes to say on his show, mind palaces shattering. A whole lot of mind palaces were shattered this week, as a lot of things that we just assumed to be true in the NFL just right in everyone's face. But the big story of the week was, unfortunately, with the New York Giants, as Cam Skattebo, the Red Bull of a running back that the Giants had, has been a spark plug for this team, coming off of a lightning rod of a college career, and really was part of a new identity that was being built with the Giants, with him and Jackson Dart, a couple of rookies coming in, not being smart enough to know they should be afraid, and just running around and just having a wild time. And it's Skattebo going on a run. He gets tackled. Teammate goes to help him up. Skattebo looks down and, oh, hey, my foot's pointing sideways, and there seems to be something really jutting out where my ankle should be, but on the other side. And it's a dislocated, whatever the heck. It's a, hey, your foot's on sideways injury that I would presume is going to keep Skattebo out for a really, really, really long time. And it sucks. Like, there isn't deep analysis or anything like that. Like, there isn't every layer of this. It sucks. Like, for the dude, this is an unbelievable run he was on, pardon the pun, where you get to take over as the starting running back for the New York Giants, which, I mean, like, to some, that's a marquee franchise, but still, it's New York. They play in New Jersey, but still. He was getting all the buzz and all the headlines and getting all this attention, and he's ripping his shirt off on Thursday Night Football, and he's having a time, and he's becoming a superstar in front of everyone's eyes, and now that gets pushed back. And you can't have many of these injuries before it changes who you are as a football player. So just for him, it sucks. Like, that is the very first part of it, is just how devastating that is for the human being, Cam Skattebo. For, like, the football team, it's devastating. You could see Jackson Dart and how upset he was when you saw that injury. And I know there are some who would say that maybe you need to keep your composure. When you see your teammate's ankle staring at you, it's okay to be upset about that, I think. And so for the team and the organization, it sucks. And you are also trying to foster a new culture and build it around this new young quarterback that you have. And now you don't have a very big part of kind of setting that tone that they had there. So just every aspect of it is just awful. Like, you feel awful for Giants fans who haven't had a lot to cheer for in the last little while. So for the player, teammates, organization, fans, no one wins in a moment like this. And it really is too bad that one of the fun stories from the NFL season has to go out in that way. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Couch Potato Diary, you should bring us with you wherever you're going. Check us out in podcast form on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Keep the NFL coming. If you guys have anything to talk about in the chat, throw them in there. We are moving away from NFL talk now, but if you got it, toss it in, and we'll get back to it. Or if you're watching after the fact, throw it into the comments and we can keep chatting about the National Football League. One game to go still. Monday Night Football tonight. Let's move now to the Calgary Flames. It has not been a banner start for the Calgary Flames. It has been quite the opposite. Simply dreadful until a win over the New York Rangers last night. A lot of the Toronto Blue Jays headlines have knocked Calgary out of the spotlight, and I think they're perfectly okay with that. So, what's next for the Calgary Flames, as it really does feel like a new era could be upon us? The Calgary Flames got a win yesterday. That's cause for celebration when that is win number 2 in game number 10. It has not been a great start for the Flames. And again, not a lot of people talking about it outside of the market because there's this baseball thing going on that's got everyone's attention. But this is a bad hockey team right now. There's no sugar coating it. There's no, oh, well, they're trying and This is a bad hockey team. It's a really bad team right now. Basically, it is Dustin Wolf and nobody else. And you can hear some of the frustration with the, I can't generate chances, which is as scathing a criticism of teammates as any hockey player is going to give. And so the obvious now is that any hint of being competitive for this team needs to go out the window. And I have pushed back on people saying, oh, they need to blow it up, with the suggestion of, look at this team. How much blown up more do you want it to be? They were 29th in the NHL in goals last season. The only reason they were competitive at all was because that dude in net just happened to speed up his Vezina timeline a little bit quicker than everyone thought it was going to be, and kept them in a lot of games, even though they were scoring about 2.5 goals a game in a league where that hasn't really been a way to be successful in a really long time. So I don't think Calgary was out here trying to be competitive. They didn't make any free agent moves in the offseason, even though they set a record for the most points put up by a team that didn't make the playoffs in NHL history. I think the organization is well aware of what they have and specifically what they don't have. And last year, what they had was lightning in a bottle, and this year, that bottle has just shattered and is cutting hands all over the place. So the obvious, though, is that it is time to rebuild. And the advancement in this is the situation with Nazem Kadri. Because for a long time, everyone on Flame social media, oh, trade Kadri, trade Kadri, trade Kadri. And again, dude had a no move. So you couldn't, unless you wanted to. But now, that's been switched, transitioned, whatever you want to call it, into a 13-team no-trade clause now. And so, admittedly, it was an easy answer for me, because it was just, oh, well, what could the Flames get for Nazem Kadri? And the answer was fucking nothing. He's got a no move. He ain't going anywhere. But now, this certainly opens the door. Kadri still controls it, and that's why it's just not completely waived. It's still a 13. He still has a bit of a say in where he ends up going. And I am sure if there are a couple of offers that are similar, the organization would go to him and be like, hey, where do you want to go? I think there is a bit of that there. I'm just assuming. That's no reporting or anything like that, obviously. But I do think this now significantly opens the door in the rebuild conversation for Calgary. This was always the move. If you wanted to go full-on tank, let's just be as bad as possible, Nazem Kadri, well, it is funny to say, well, his 35 goals kept them from tanking last year. It's I don't know, they look pretty awful now with him. And they still had just a horrendous offensive team with him last year. But still, he is a very big piece. And he is something that can speed up this process a little bit. Calgary is in a pretty good spot with the young foundation that they have. And I get players are getting scratched and everything like that right now. But when you look at it from a 300-foot view, this team isn't in a bad spot. If they were to go out and get a Gavin McKenna in the draft, he plugs into a lineup that I don't think it wouldn't be Chicago, where it's just dire for a few years or anything like that. They would be set up pretty well for success. But Kadri can really get you there. And it's not just the player or anything like that, but it is also the situation that a lot of teams find themselves in right now. Nazem Kadri is exactly what basically every contending team in the sport needs at this particular moment, and it is a top 6 center. everyone basically is lacking high-level center depth. And because he is someone who has done it before in the playoffs and can fit a number of different roles, you need him out there on the penalty kill, fine. Power play, of course. As your number one center for a little bit because the dude got hurt, absolutely. Really good number two center, probably the best spot to put him in. How about a number three center? Would be one of the best in the league if you put him there. He fits so many different things that I think he moves to the top of players that could get the Flames the most back in a trade. I think they could get more for him than they could for Rasmus Andersson. Maybe Andersson being a bit of a smaller ticket this year helps out, but I do also think Kadri, it's not a small ticket, but being kind of locked in and having a little bit more of cost certainty, I guess, on the player helps that out as well. So I think that the Flames would be in a position to get a pretty good haul from, say, a desperate Toronto team or Ottawa, where the wheels are kind of falling off, but we got to do it. Now, I don't know if Kadri would go to Ottawa, but you know what I mean? Like, there are Colorado, they think they figured out their second line center thing, but I think Kadri would be an improvement there. Winnipeg perpetually is looking for a second line center. Perish the thought, but dude seems like he'd be a Florida Panther, doesn't he? Like, there's so many teams that feel like they could use a Nazem Kadri that I think this would be kind of that magic pill that could really help things out with a Flames rebuild. So this would be a big spot for Calgary. And if he is willing to go, and Blake Coleman as well, Calgary could be in a spot like they were a couple of years ago, where they're the belle of the ball. They are, the lights have come on, it's 2 a.m, and they're the prettiest girl at the bar. They have what everybody wants. They have a proven, high-level, top 6 center, second-line center, whatever you want to call him, in Nazem Kadri. You have a strong, top 4 right-shot defenseman in Rasmus Andersson, and you have a proven depth scoring piece with tons of playoff experience in Blake Coleman. The Flames could really speed up their rebuild and get this thing moving in the right direction if all those guys want to go. I have always cautioned with rebuilds, you do still need some adults in the room, but that part you can figure out later. You got Backlund. He's very adulty. Hanley can help with that as well. Like, if they move these guys, they would still have some of those voices in the room. So I get frustrated sometimes where, just trade this guy for a fifth. It's like, he's worth more than that to this organization. You'll be fine with only one 5th round pick this year. It'll be okay. But for these guys, this is a big spot for Calgary to really speed this thing up. Toxic in the chat. The season is basically over at this point, to be honest. Flames got some good young pieces already. Also asking, is Coleman worth a first, at least a second? A first might be a bit tough on the Blake Coleman part. I would say a second. It would be, I think you could get a bid going for him and get that up to a second, a third, no doubt. And if it ends up being a third and a prospect, fine. Like that, I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep over that. The Kadri one and the Andersson one are the big money ones at this particular time. We also have Connor on YouTube. He should be fetching more than the Isles got for Brock Nelson last year. Yeah, like, Brock Nelson certainly has his role in the National Hockey League, but Nazem Kadri greater than sign Brock Nelson, right? So let's just pull up old Hockey DB here and make my computer get laggy for a second. It was, to recap, Brock Nelson traded from New York Islanders with William Dufour to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Callum Ritchie, Oliver Shillington, a conditional first-round pick in the 2026 draft, and a conditional third in 2027. I think that could be kind of what you're looking at, right? For Kadri, like, a first, no doubt. A third, yes. With a condition on it that, hey, if he's lifting the Stanley Cup, that turns into a second-round pick. You get a, like, cheapish, youngish NHL player and prospect. That's kind of what you're looking for. Like, the standard kind of used to be a pick, a player, a prospect, right? And I think that's kind of evolved over time. But that would kind of be what you would be looking for. So I think Kadri certainly now would be the piece that would get the most back for the Flames at this particular time. And the thing we always hear is that, well, these trades don't happen early in the season. And I don't understand why. To Toxic's point, The season feels over already. I get it's 10 games in, and well, don't you know the St. Louis Blues were in last place and barely even an NHL franchise. And then they came back after New Year's and won the Stanley Cup. You know why we use that as an example from 2019? Is because that doesn't happen a lot. You know what happened last year with the teams that were in last place around this time? They stayed last place and sucked the whole way. There wasn't this miraculous comeback story. The reason that was so cool and so weird is because it was weird. It doesn't happen all the time. I hate that teams use the exception as the rule to justify not doing anything. It's so frustrating to me. Oh, and on the other side of it, these teams know they have issues. The Jets have known for 3 years that they need a second line center. That's why they brought Jonathan. They didn't bring Jonathan Taves in just for a feel-good moment. They brought him in, playoff experience, and knowing they need some center depth, right? The Leafs, for forever, have known that they kind of need a little bit more help there, right? All these teams, I'm not saying every issue is apparent 10 games into the season. And I'm also not saying that things don't change from 10 games into the season to the time that the Stanley Cup gets hoisted several months from now. But when there are extremes and when things are obvious, we should treat them as such. So I don't get why a team that needs a second line center would wait till December to trade for a Nazem Kadri. On the other hand, I don't see why Calgary would wait, even a little bit. Like, for the Flames, did a little number crunching for you guys this morning. For the Calgary Flames to get to 96 points, which was the point total they had last year and still missed the playoffs, but generally is good enough to get you in. If Calgary wants to get to that point, they would need to be 43, 24, and 5 the rest of the way. A team that's scoring just over 2 goals a game would have to play at a 103-point pace the rest of the way just to give themselves a fighting chance of getting curb stomped by Dallas, Vegas, or Colorado in round number 1 of the playoffs. Or if you just wanted to just dead aim nail the record from last year that had an absurd amount of overtime losses on it, they would have to go 39, 20, and 13. It ain't happening. They're not going to play at a 100-point pace the rest of the way after looking like a relatively competitive American Hockey League team for the first 10 games of the season. Like, it just, sometimes crazy things happen in sports, but they're crazy things because they're crazy. So don't treat them as if it's, oh, well, you never know. Like, it is like hey, look, I get that, you know what, times are tough right now, but we are one lottery ticket away from everything turning around. So yeah, we're going to buy this new TV. We're just going to ride this thing out. That doesn't happen. So be responsible about this. Recognize where you are. And I'm not saying that the organization doesn't. I think that they are more realistic about their lot in life right now than a lot of people give them credit for. I think that if they were this team that was content with the middle and everything like that, they would have gone out and been more active in a not so active free agent market, right? Like that there was a lot of moves that were out there for a while that they could have gone and done and didn't, because I think they knew. Like, their biggest free agent signing in the last 2 years is Anthony Mantha. They know what they are. And they just happened to outperform it last year. And now they're probably underperforming this year. But this is certainly closer than what they were, to what they are, than what last year was. So recognize it, move on. That's where you need to be. That's where this team is at right now. It is a rebuild, and not just, well, let's trade a couple veterans for a third round pick. Let's have some real big seismic moves and set themselves up for the future. Again, I don't think, future-wise, I don't think they're that far away. Currently, they're really far away. But I do like a lot of young pieces on this team. And I don't even hate how Huska's handling it. Like, I thought the Perek stuff at the beginning of the year was dumb. I didn't like it. But I don't mind. Look, Sharon Govich, you're not playing. I get that there's a podcast that's vouching for you, but whatever. Sit. You sit for a game. Coronado, maybe force it in a little bit. You're sitting. Still have the coach hold these players accountable. It can't just be 20 young guys went out there and skated around and nothing really mattered, but hey, they were young, so they needed the experience. There still needs to be that accountability. The coach still needs to coach as if he is trying to win these hockey games. But it's now time to let some of these young kids come in, see what they can do, and move in an entirely different direction. Connor, also in the YouTube chat, I want Brustevich getting some games to be a priority. Him getting traded here was partly Van's concern he wouldn't sign with them because he didn't think he would get a look. I don't want to piss him off. That's fair. I think development-wise, like, I don't know the kid at all. I would assume that if you just kind of sat him down like, hey, maybe you're not playing at this exact moment, but here is our plan. We want you to this, and then we want to do this, and then bam. You know, I would much rather he play 20 minutes a night in the American Hockey League than 6 minutes a night in the National Hockey League, right? Like, and we can get into the conversation, like being Miramanov getting sent down, all of that. Like, we can get into those, like, should he be playing over some of these guys? But the fact is, right now, he wouldn't be a top 4 on the Flames. And which is saying something considering where the team is at right now. But like he wouldn't be. I would much rather he get those opportunities in the American Hockey League, develop, and then come up next year and be the guy who is just dominating already. Like, I'd rather he get over-seasoned at the American Hockey League than come up, play 8 minutes a night at the NHL level. But hey, at least he's playing at the NHL level. Like, I don't think there's a spot for him. Now, if someone, like, when Rasmus Andersson gets traded, the conversation is there. If someone gets hurt, the conversation is there. But for right now, like, they're not even playing Perek as much as some people would like. He just got on the first power play unit. So let that be the project right now, and let Brustevich just be awesome in the American Hockey League. If he's undeniable, you figure it out. If something opens up, you'll let him take that opportunity. But for right now, I don't mind him getting this look. I do think you also have to have the conversation with Dustin Wolf. And be like, dude, like, we get it. We know. We got functioning eyeballs. We can see. It ain't fun. That can't be a great time right now. Just getting pelted in between the pipes. If you could keep that down a little bit, though, that'd be great. Also, probably not going to play you 60 games this year. Hey, like, 45 feels like a pretty nice number. Do get Devin Cooley in there a little bit. Hey, like, I think there needs to be some conversations, some real adult conversations had with a lot of these players going forward. Don't miss anything from Couch Potato Diary on social media. You can follow me at Primetime Klein on Twitter, Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. I know I said Twitter and X, they're the same thing. Whatever, I'm rolling. Check me out. I am at Primetime Klein on social media. Toxic. Wolf is getting run down to the ground. Oh, dude. Like, you knew that was going to be the case. It's surprising it wasn't last year. But yeah, it's not a good hockey team. And they're going to get worse, right? Like, think about, they're trading away Nazem Kadri, who is right now their best forward. Rasmus Andersson, who's in the top 2 of their best defensemen. And Blake Coleman, who is on just perpetually the best possession line this team has every year. So, you think you're getting beat down now, my guy? Just wait. There's going to be a game where this team is at single-digit shots with like 5 minutes left in the third period. Like, it's going to get rough going forward. I would say, because yeah, it's going to be something. I would say. Also, just quickly, Anand was in the chat earlier. I don't know if he's still hanging around here today, but he said, "Good afternoon, Peter. Happy Monday. Go Blue Jays. Slowly starting to learn baseball and become a fan, knowing it's sort of similar to cricket. Good win for the Flames last night, scoring unusual 5 goals. This road trip will be interesting. Do you think Cooley gets a nod at some point for the trip?" I replied to him there, but want to verbalize it here. I think he gets, yeah, they're going on a 4-game trip. Here, I have the paper copy right in front of me. Well, it wasn't right in front of me, but now it is. They are at Toronto coming up on Tuesday. They are at Ottawa on Thursday, at Nashville on Saturday, and then at Flyers on Sunday. I would imagine that there is a Cooley place in there. And if you wanted to double up, honestly, like if they wanted to go Wolf, Cooley, and go Wolf against the Buds, Cooley against Ottawa, who's struggling a little bit right now. Wolf then against Nashville, and then Cooley wraps it up against Philadelphia. Not hurting my feelings doing that either. So I wouldn't mind working him in a little bit more right now and just giving this kid a bit of a break from getting just absolutely assaulted by hockey pucks every single day. With how they're playing, when is Cooley's next start? That's not a back-to-back. Look, I understand that there is a lot of times in Calgary where it's just like, yeah, back-to-back, just go with the goalie. I think you have to save Wolf from this team. Yeah, answering it before I even saw it, Deeds, yes. But like you have to protect Wolf here from the team that he is playing on. with how bad it has been so far. So I think it is important to not just rely on, back-to-backs will come up. You have to give this kid a couple of extra breathers for his own sanity going forward. Because it's going to be a lot, I think, as this year goes along. Play Cooley in all the games. That coming from Toxic. That's also a way to look at it. Because it feels like the Kipper days for a number of different ways. That is absolutely accurate. Toxic. Connor in the chat. PK, I want to know what you think the approach to this season from the media will be and should be. I think we have some very soft media group with asking the tough questions. That's I hadn't really thought about what the approach could be from the media here. I think you are starting to see a shift already. A lot more people talking rebuild right away than had been in the past. And there has been a contingent of media here that have been very, no, not a rebuild. You have to keep it competitive. Fans aren't going to want to rebuild, all that. And I would say, saying all of this, rebuild that, trade this, trade that, there are going to be some nights where it's going to suck. Like, it's going to be miserable watching this hockey team play. And regardless of how you are on Team Tank and all of that, like, at some point, it's still not great watching your team in that. So I would just remind people of that. But I do think that the media is going to be a little bit more on the rebuild side as this goes along. Like, I think when a Kadri trade happens, I don't think it's going to be, what an embarrassment. How could they not show up for those boys in the locker room and do this, that, or the other thing? I think that they're pretty good at figuring out what direction things are going and kind of riding along with it that way. In terms of the tough questions, I don't know how many there are going to be because the team's bad. Like, what? Sir, you played your top line 20 minutes tonight. You won the hockey game. What the fuck? Like, I don't know how many of those there are going to be. I think there will be questioning of utilization, specifically around Perek, as the games start to not mean anything. And I think that will be the case. But I don't know if this is going to be an overly critical media group. And I don't know if there's going to be a lot to be critical of. This is going to be in kind of the beginning stages of a teardown where you can just you can write everything off very quickly as nothing matters, which is why I get concerned about it in the locker room. But from a media standpoint, it can be very quickly written off as kids getting experience, all of that. So that's kind of my thought on how all of that could play out. So, bit of a depressing note in the NHL. But let's move to the NBA, where one star is shining so bright. Victor Wembanyama was this alien prospect that we just heard all these myths about. And then he came to the NBA and we got a taste. And then he got hurt and now he is back and he is as must-watch as anything in sports right now. Let's talk about the potential that has already been reached for the NBA's new star. So the NBA season is here and we're getting into it now, and holy smokes, Victor Wembanyama, the experience is on another level. He is already must watch. Like, if you put a Spurs anything on, I have to watch it because of what this kid is doing. He has pushed the Spurs competitively into another tier already. And looking at him and figuring out what they could be, what he could be, I'm not putting a ceiling on this dude at all. There are so many gifts and so much talent in that kid to go along with, and this is sometimes used as hyperbole, but this is an actual descriptor for how his offseason went, a monk-like discipline and work ethic. You combine the obvious God-given gifts of being 7'5" and athletic, and combine that with the discipline that he showed this offseason and the work ethic that he obviously has, that is where you get a monster. I don't know how you stop this kid, and thusly, this team. Like, he is doing everything that we thought he could be, and then some, and he's doing it 2 years in, really, after missing a chunk of last season. And the stuff he is doing on the floor, if you did that with a created player in NBA 2K, anyone you played would rage quit because like it's not possible for him to block that, for him to be 7'5", hit it between the legs, do a step back, knock down the three, and get fouled. There's no way you can do that, and no way you can block like 8 shots in a game with him. Like, there's no way. He is doing things that you just couldn't believe to be possible, and so it's hard to predict what he's going to be and where he's going to go, because you already couldn't have figured out that this is what it was going to be, because we've never seen anyone or anything like this before. Guys his size before were basically there to get dunked on, right? Like Sean Bradley was a huge man, and thus certainly a usable figure on a basketball floor. But he was also yammed on a lot in any kind of highlight combination. Yao Ming, Hall of Famer. Before Wemby, he was kind of the alien coming from another country, and he was so huge, and how were you ever going to be able to stop him? And again, Hall of Fame career, but he got dunked on a lot. You had these big guys, that was kind of their role, was to end up on Slam magazine poster once or twice a year. This kid, Zion got him, 100%, but he's blocking everything. He has the handle, he has everything. And now you combine that with a Spurs team where Castle has obviously taken a step. They got Dylan Harper, who in almost any other draft would have been the number 1 overall pick, and De'Aaron Fox, who still has some potential in a Spurs organization that kind of knows a thing or two about developing big guys. So, like, there's nothing that you could do to limit this kid right now. Also, lastly, he being from France, and Luc Cornet, his teammate, benchmate, whatever you want to say, guy who plays with him a lot and fellow big, being white as a ghost, and having their team name be French Vanilla is one of the great nicknames that has come along in sports in a very long time. So Wemby is giving us highlight after highlight, and now an elite level nickname. What can't this kid do, really? We have also in the chat here. We still have more Flame stock. Okay, we'll get to the Flames, some more Flame stuff maybe here in a little bit. But sticking with the Wemby situation, like he's incredible to watch. And like I said, at this point, I think doubting the Spurs would be a fool's errand. Like they feel like they're ready to go now. They feel like not maybe a play-in team, whatever. Like this is a team that can take 2 or 3 steps into, if they were in the East, they may not lose a game, but you are running into some juggernauts of the Nuggets and the Thunder, Rockets I would put in there as well. And then after that, I cannot confidently say that any other team is better than them right now. We could have the debate for sure on a number of teams, right? Like I get that they did that to Dallas. Dallas is all right. Clippers had a pretty good offseason, save for one obvious story. But like there are some teams that you could put the Spurs in a conversation with, but teams that I can undoubtedly tell you are better than the Spurs, honestly, like saying the Rockets, I don't think I can put the Rockets there. I think I would probably, like, lasers pointed at Earth, Max Kellerman's picking Iguodala, Rockets versus Spurs, I'd probably pick the Rockets, but it wouldn't be a no-brainer. That, like, talking about the second, third best team in the Western Conference, that is where the Spurs could be right now because of how good this team, or because of how good this kid is. Also, I just want to say, like, what a time to be a sports fan. And I'm not just saying that because my Blue Jays are in the World Series right now, but like you have Wemby, who is incredible and playing the way he is in a league that already has Luka and Jokic and SGA, and then legacy players like LeBron, Steph, KD. Giannis would probably wince at being called a legacy player, but he would be in there as well. Like, you have multiple merging of eras into one amazing league at this particular time. In the NFL, like, enough said, right? Like Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, the Eagles. There's just so many amazing talents in the National Football League at this particular time. Shohei is doing things no one has seen before in Major League Baseball. Connor McDavid is electrifying the National Hockey League. He is an incredible talent and is going up against a villain that plays the villain role perfectly in the Florida Panthers. Caitlin Clark has taken the WNBA to another level, and we're seeing all the great talent that is in that league. Golf, they don't have Tiger Woods, but they got 20 guys who are 75% of Tiger, and we haven't had that ever. Like, golf's depth is excellent. Boxing. We've had more big fights in boxing in the last 18 months than we had in the 18 years previous. Like, there's just so many amazing things happening in sports right now. And Victor Wembanyama certainly is adding to that. So, what a time to be a sports fan. A reminder that we're trying to grow this thing, Couch Potato Diary. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that sure would help a lot if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, if you could hit that follow button. Also, again, shout out to Deeds for subscribing for the 20th month. If you have the means and want to hit the subscribe button there, that would certainly help out a lot. If you are watching this, again, on YouTube, make sure you hit that notification bell as well, so you know when we are going live. Just went on about what a glorious time this is in sports, really, with Shohei and the NFL and Connor McDavid and Victor Wembanyama in the NBA. There's a bit of a downside to it, too, as a gambling story, controversy even, has rocked the National Basketball Association, and boy has it brought the takes out of the woodwork. So, now we're going to have our take on the other takes that have happened around a really in-depth gambling story in the NBA. This is not what we want to be doing right now. This is not what the NBA wants us to be doing. In the chat, Toxic is asking, is Wemby already the best defensive player ever? We could say most talented. Best, we need to sustain that a little bit, but from a talent standpoint, like, no one could do what he could do. These are the conversations the NBA wants us to be having. Instead, Kash Patel goes in and just starts arresting people for gambling. And we get the breakdown of what happened. And holy smokes, is it eye-opening when we're talking about poker with like weird glasses and x-ray tables and card counting apps and everything like that. And we're looking at games being thrown, which has always and forever been one of the biggest concerns of every league ever in existence, is that happening. And so because of that, it really has overshadowed what has been a very fun first couple of days in the NBA, but it has also brought a lot of the takes out of the woodwork. And the one that you would see the most is, well, the NBA, they're in bed with these gambling organizations, and like the admittedly pretty funny. Some of the jokes being like, boy, there are just so many details in this NBA issue and in this filing from the FBI. Which means if you use the code DETAILS on DraftKings, you get 50%. And so those are pretty funny. But I do want to remind everyone as we go into another one of these stories. And look, first of all, I want to say what happened in these is bad. And players should not be throwing games. And players should not be involved in illegal poker games with the mafia. Probably doesn't need to be said, but feel like I should anyway, because it's going to come across really apologetic by me in a second here. I think some of the reactions to this are, while well-meaning, maybe not the most thought through, and I don't think the most conceivable either. The NBA, like, this is why you just got to get gambling out of the game. That's not going to happen. Ever. Never, ever, ever. By the way, the first league that does that is going to be a league that collapses on itself very quickly. Also, and I bring this up every time, I have been pro gambling for a while. We've had gambling sponsors on this podcast. We do gambling segments all the time. And when it was being legalized, for lack of a better term, and being brought in, there was a lot of discussion of, oh, well, now this is going to mean all these different things. And I thought everyone was going crazy because we've been able to gamble on sports for a really long time. A, Vegas exists. B, the internet's a thing. Like, for as long as the internet has existed, the joke I make is I don't think it was the first website, but it was probably like the fourth, was a sports gambling website. Because that is just what people have done with games for forever. If it's with your buddy sitting at home, hey, $5 says this guy does this, or this team wins. Okay, bet. To some serious gambling problems. And there are people with serious gambling problems. That is a very real thing that I don't want to overshadow here. But for as long as the internet's existed, so has sports gambling on the internet. So has the access to it. There are more sites that are doing it now Absolutely. But you've been able to bet on all of these things for a really, really long time. And it wasn't much of a barrier of entry to get into that. Don't ask how I know that. But the thing that I am endlessly stunned by is that these people are trying to game the system now that everything is regulated and highly monitored. Like, you've been able to bet on prop bets for forever. But, okay, we're not going to do it now. Oh, now it's legal, monitored by every site ever, and we have the best technology in the history of the world to see what people are doing. Okay, now I'm going to be Danny Ocean and be the one that's going to completely beat the system and figure this out. Like that part, I underestimated. I completely underestimated the high level of stupidity that people would have around sports gambling to think that, okay, well, now that it's regulated, now we can take advantage of the system. That's insane to me. And yes, the league needs to crack down on these things. And yes, talking about gambling issues in sports with DraftKings sponsors, with FanDuel sponsors, with the hilarious video of ESPN having this discussion, and then just subtly fading out the ESPN bet logo in the bottom right corner. There is an air of hypocrisy with a lot of this. But it is because of those deals that you have to shut this stuff down. Because gambling money now is such a big part of the next sports boom that we are having at this particular time, because that's a thing, you cannot have the slightest hint of games being fixed. Games are being bet on more than ever before. And if you are going to have that kind of money rolling in, you have to keep the games authentic. You have to keep the integrity of these games 100%. If there is any kind of a hint of fixing anything, then there are real problems that are going to come. And so that is why these leagues have to crack this down. It's not like, oh, well, gambling is here and now everyone should be able to gamble. That has never been the case. And people bring that, yes, it's funny that Shane Pinto gets drilled in his first game by a Bet99 thing after he was suspended for gambling and stuff like that. But those are the rules, right? Like, you enter into these partnerships, there are rules that need to be made. And whether we think they're hypocritical or not, they're the rules. Like, again, these places have alcohol sponsorships. Max Verstappen is sponsored by Heineken. They make a joke about it in the commercial, being like, oh no, I'm driving, and stuff like that. But you can't then be, well, you have a bunch of drinking ads on your stuff, so these guys can drink and drive now, or can abuse alcohol. No, you can't do that. That just because you have got in bed with these things doesn't mean that it is now fair game to do whatever you want with all of these things. And so, look, I agree with Adam Silver saying that, like, the partnerships here actually do make it easier to track what is happening and to have things like that, or have things like this get caught. Do we really think that Donaghy was the only one who was gambling on sports since Pete Rose, and the only one throwing games and doing all this stuff since Pete Rose? No, that would be asinine to assume. But because now we have all of these different sites and we have all this technology and we have all these partnerships, they can catch what is happening now significantly faster. And they can see, like, hey, $200,000 just came on Jonte Porter, who we had to Google to make sure he was playing. So maybe we nip that in the bud. Hey, and maybe all of a sudden this Rozier thing looks a little suspicious. We can get on that because of the regulation and everything that's happening with these. You can catch them now. So to get away from that, I think I don't think it fixes this situation at all. Toxic asking in the chat, loaded question, but why do you think athletes gamble on a couple $1,000s when they are multimillionaires already? There are, and that is a very fair and obvious question, right? There are a few things that go into this. One, gambling addiction is a thing. Like that is just whatever. Not whatever. I don't want to dismiss it. Gambling addiction is absolutely a problem. And I am sure that the large numbers of athletes that there are, we cover a lot of ground there, right? So odds are a couple of them would be more susceptible to gambling issues and things like that. The other part of it is that they're competitors, right? Like when we are watching a game, and if I put with Toxic, if we did a watch along for just a random NHL game, Flyers Rangers on a Thursday, and I was like, hey, $1, says that the Rangers take this one. All of a sudden, we're watching that with so much more attention and so much more focus. And you have these athletes who competition is all they have ever known their entire lives. And for Rozier, he's playing on a dog shit Charlotte Hornets team. He's not really, that competitive edge isn't exactly getting itched. So, you turn to gambling. But it's next level from that, because now just gambling on whatever, well, yeah, the stakes don't really mean that much to me. I need that competition. I need to figure this out. So what should I do? Let's make it illegal. Let's get the exhilaration of a crime is basically what I'm saying. But like there is some of that, right? Like there is a little bit of, okay, we're planning this thing. We're working on this. I am beating the system. I'm competing with the system. There we go. So I think because of how some athletes are wired, there's a little bit of that as well. Also, this is not the first time that athletes have been fiscally irresponsible over the years, right? Like there was the ESPN documentary on it, the 30 for 30 called Broke, where all these guys, like why, if you have all these millions of dollars, why not invest in an accountant to keep things on the up and up and make sure everything's okay? No, I'm fine. I'm going to buy 18 cars for 20 different friends and do this, that, and the other thing. Like athletes have made a lot of mistakes with the money. So yeah, it does seem silly that they would go home and count $20,000 for a guy who's making 167 million of them. And for us, that is very difficult to comprehend. But I don't think it's the money. I think it's the competition aspect of it. I think in some instances, they're just dumb. I think that's certainly the Porter thing. And I think it's it's kind of the next level and the next evolution of, well, I got to look out for my boys, right? Like these guys have my back from day one. And sure, I've already bought them a house and a car, but now I can make them 20 grand a year without putting them on my payroll. Great. Fantastic. I can help them out with that as well. And so it's a lot of the issues that athletes have fallen into over the years, just kind of multiplied because you have this new thing that is here. And so, again, I don't think any of that gets fixed by just taking gambling away. Like, if we just put a pause on everything, like, hey, we screwed up. Knocking things over a little bit here. I'm so amped up here. But look, we screwed up. We went too hard on this. We're just going to take all sports gambling away. We're just going to time machine this back where the only place you could gamble is Vegas and some European websites that people have easy access to, but we'll feel better about this anyway. We're going to go back to where we were before. Toothpaste back in the tube. I don't think that's going to help one thing. I really don't. Because of everything I just laid out, where these guys have made mistakes like this for a long time. And there is again, like if we are going to say that one of the big issues is gambling addiction, that addiction doesn't just get solved by, okay, well, now we've made gambling more difficult to do. There may be some who are like, oh boy, save me from myself. That's great. There are going to be others who are going to hitchhike their way to Vegas and try to get any kind of a taste of it that they can. Like that's just going to be what it is. And so I'm not saying like, oh, well, everyone's addicted to drugs anyway. Cocaine's legal. That's not exactly where I'm going with this. But I don't think that you fix as much if you just say everything is illegal now. Did you see the level of detail that they put into all of that poker stuff? Right? Like with the video of the glasses, and you can see KQA109 on that. The app where the card gets dealt out and you have a little earpiece in and it's saying 3, and that means third seat at the table is the one that is going to win the hand. And x-ray things and all of this. Do we really think that the mafia, which is apparently still a thing in 2025, do we think the mafia is going to say, oh, sports gambling is illegal in Connecticut again? Guess we have to do something else. That's not happening. Not a chance that is happening. These sorts of things are always going to exist. And so having the ability to monitor this stuff, having the ability to control these things, I think has to be the way to go. That does not mean we can't make some changes to it, right? There absolutely should be more, or there absolutely should be fewer prop bets. That's a spam phone call. Someone's watching me. But no, like there should be fewer prop bets. A Jonte Porter prop bet shouldn't exist, right? Like he is, I don't get why sportsbooks had him to begin with. He is not a big enough player to warrant any of those sorts of things. So yeah, limit these on some of the guys who aren't making as much money in the NBA, who may want to help out their buddies a little bit more and stuff like that. like I just like from a gambling standpoint, I don't get why books put those out or first pitch ball strike. That shouldn't be a thing. I like it is fun to say like, hey, I have noticed this trend. I have done the research. I want to be able to profit off of this. But it is way too easy to just spike a ball 56 feet in. And because baseball's hard, just like, oh yeah, gripped it too tight. Down it goes. Whoops. And just go on it that way. The only players who are playing on these from a sportsbook standpoint are either people who are doing a ton of research or people who are cheating. Like, you're not just going to get your buddy just randomly putting $1 down on Jonte Porter things. Or maybe that's the limit. You just make it, okay, it's $20. That's as high as you can go on these. We're not taking any big things on it. It's just $20. That's all you can do. And try to limit it that way so we don't get anything crazy there. Or the other way would be kind of forcing it into a parlay, but keeping it with single bet odds. So, like, you can do the same game parlay, and all of a sudden you're at plus 500 on a thing. Don't make it this, but make it, okay, it has to be first pitch ball, first out strikeout, and a no-hit inning, minus 110. You know, like, you have to hit three things that would be difficult to fake. One of them has to be in the positive, because it's a whole lot easier to throw something than it is to just be awesome, and still make it barely worth people's time to do that. My last thought on this. I wonder if this incentivizes leagues to punish tanking a little bit more. Because, to the point I just said, it is so much easier if we're going to throw things for betting. It's easier to throw things than it is to be like, no, man, I'm feeling it tonight. I'm going to put up 40. Bet on the over. Alternate line, bet me at 35.5. Oh, shoot, I'm playing Wemby tonight. Forgot, I only put up 25. Dang. Or something along those lines, right? So it is a whole lot easier to profit off of these things from the negative. And that would mean teams that are tanking. And so if you're going to have these non-competitive teams and non-competitive games, it's bad for the league anyway. But with Chauncey Billups going to Buddy at his poker game being like, oh yeah, by the way, we're tanking now, so Dame Lillard's going to be out for the rest of the season. And then boom, bets are coming in and all of that. And now you have that aspect of it where it is easier for a coach to be like, oh, by the way, this is happening, so take the under on the win total, and because you can still bet on those in season, and bet against us here in the next couple of games because it ain't gonna go well. We're gonna actively try to lose these basketball games, and you can just brush it under the rug as, oh, we're tanking, we're trying to get a better pick, instead of what is actually happening, and that is fraud, conspiracy, all of those sorts of things. The other aspect of it is we're talking about these guys, and we all kind of understand that they are in a pretty good spot financially. But rich people don't think they're in these great spots all the time because they are accustomed to a certain way of life. You see that scene in Billions where he's like, how much do you have? And I think it's 40 million that he said, 40 or 400. Either way, a preposterous amount of money. And they basically go through all the things that he wants to do, and he's broke in his mind because of the way of life that he has. Well, if you're on a tanking team, especially if you're a coach on a tanking team, there's a pretty good chance you're not hanging around to see how all of that gets to play out a little bit. So why not build up a little bit more of a nest egg over here with my poker buddies and letting them know that, oh yeah, just amp that up a little bit. Wet my beak a little bit, and let's go that way. So I do wonder if, because now we have seen a prime example of how all this can play out with tanking teams, I wonder if this now incentivizes leagues even more to try to get away from tanking clubs in their leagues. That's just something that kind of came to mind as this was playing out. Toxic in the chat. Baseball and basketball are the easiest to rig. Hockey and football, some things have to go your way. LOL. Yeah. Oh, that's fair, right? Like the football ones, there are some that you could do, but it would still be difficult, right? Like you could do, if it's under 29.5, you can start to pull up, like that college kid did to Greg Jennings the other day, where he's busting down for a touchdown, all of a sudden his leg gives out, and he's just dragging ass all the way to the end zone for a touchdown. You could do that, like, Mahomes is scrambling, and he decides to duck out of bounds because his run total was at 9.5 and he was at 8 yards and just needed to scoot out. Like, you can, but it is significantly more difficult. And hockey, it's so all over the place, those props are difficult to do anyway. Like, you don't have McDavid's first shot misses, but you could do like McDavid 1.5 shots, and that's just the game that he is just feeding Leon Draisaitl one-timers, right? Like, there are some that you could do, but yes, baseball, basketball, you have significantly more control over, especially baseball, where it is just a series of individual matchups and then the game's over. So there are ways that you can do that. 100% toxic. I agree with you there. All right. So for podcast listeners, that's going to do it for part 1 today. We've already gone over an hour here today. So podcast is going to be broken up into 2 parts because we're going to get into the combat sports talk now. So again, on the podcast, check out part 2 coming your way in just a little bit. For those on the stream, everything is going to be back to normal here in just 1 second. And we roll on. Part 2 of today's podcast is all focused on combat sports as UFC 321. Get it? Went down over the weekend. We'll talk about that. WWE Raw preview. Trying something new with our Raw preview today. And going to look back at what happened with NXT on Saturday as well. That will be for listeners of Living Room Lariats. So we're all over the place with a bunch of different podcast episodes today. But let's keep rolling on now and talk UFC. We were finally free. We were finally out of the clutches of Jon Jones's oppressive heavyweight championship run. Tom Aspinall, knocking everybody out, now had his opportunity as the undisputed champion of the UFC's heavyweight division. So obviously, everything went perfect and swimmingly, right? Maybe not. UFC 321 went down Saturday afternoon. In the main event, a highly anticipated heavyweight championship bout with Tom Aspinall finally named the undisputed heavyweight championship, claiming that throne in a way that everyone dreams of, by way of a retirement on social media and being handed it in a video on YouTube. He defended the title against Ciryl Gane, and it ended very quickly as Ciryl Gane, channeling his inner Captain Insano, or whatever the guy's name was from Happy Gilmore, as he went 2 knucks deep into the eyeball of Tom Aspinall, ending the fight. I can only come to the conclusion that the heavyweight championship of the UFC is cursed. That's the only thing you can come to the conclusion of with this. You have Jon Jones come in, win. First of all, the UFC goes on an 18-month contract negotiation, basically spending the whole time telling Francis Ngannou to go blank himself. And he vacates the title. Jon Jones comes in. We get the moment we've all waited for. Jon Jones in the heavyweight division, and he dominates. And so now it's this new exciting era in Jon Jones's career in the heavyweight division. And then he doesn't defend the title for like a couple of years. And then he faces Stipe Miocic for 15 minutes, spinning back kick to the guts. Down he goes. And then he's never to be seen from again. And so we vacate the title. Tom Aspinall gets it. He has been knocking everyone out. He finally gets this opportunity. Big stage, pay-per-view, and eye poke. And fittingly, I got something in my eye while that is happening. See, I can't even talk about the heavyweight division without there being a problem with it. To have all of this play out since Francis Ngannou, there's no other way to describe it other than cursed. Francis put some kind of a hex on that championship as he was leaving. Maybe he got one of those Etsy witches and just heavyweight crown, no more. It has to be cursed. There's no other way. It sucks because this was an interesting matchup. I didn't give a whole lot of thought to Gane maybe having a chance to win. It looked fine in the moments we had, but I don't think that we have to roll this one back. The timing of it sucks too. It's at the end of a pay-per-view. It's had a few decisions in a row. End of a pay-per-view, a fight that we're all excited for, and then this happens. It just sucked. So again, cursed. Cursed is the only way you can describe any of this with the heavyweight division. There was one title fight, at least, that went the distance. Mackenzie Dern reaching her potential. She is a champion in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. She was someone who was very hyped as a prospect. There was a lot of buzz about her coming in, and she has obvious skills and obvious talents and high level in those. It was just, okay, can she round out the rest of it? And then she plateaued. She was able to buzzsaw through who she was able to buzzsaw through, but there was a ceiling that she hit. And she kept bumping up against it, and it wasn't really happening. And then it looked like it would, and then it wouldn't. And then it looked like a maybe, and then it wouldn't. And now she's been able to put it together, and now she's a champion. Is she the most complete fighter in the Ultimate Fighting Championship? She is not. But the things that she does, well, she does at an elite high level, and it makes it very concerning for the rest of the fighters there. Now, there's an obvious game plan to get around it, but she makes it difficult to get to that one. So a huge shout out to Mackenzie Dern, who finally reaches her potential as a UFC champion, winning her fight at UFC 321. Otherwise, I mean, there are some noteworthy wins, and we'll get to those as the week goes on here, but not the most exciting of cards. It was a mid-afternoon one on a day where there's World Series baseball, college football, LSU's firing coaches, stuff like that. So it was a difficult day to stand out anyway, and a difficult card to kind of stand out on a couple of weeks after you already had a pay-per-view. So it was a weird spot. Weird ending to it, but Mackenzie Dern kind of becomes the highlight of the show as she finds her way into championship gold with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So any more UFC thoughts? Let me know, chat, comments, whatever you want to put those. Let me know. We can keep talking some fights, but we will move on here. Again, if you could share this video with your friends, that would be great. I want to keep talking fights with everybody, and it would certainly help grow Couch Potato Diary. Going to move now into something new we're going to do here with our wrestling previews. Instead of a big long, all right, this is what is going to happen on this show this week. Let's just do 3 things that we're watching for on Monday Night Raw coming up tonight. Three things that we're looking for Monday Night Raw. Number 1, the boots tease. Everyone seems to be assuming that it is Brock Lesnar. And we see, for those of you who don't know, social media, they put up the videos, 3 videos of 3 booted individuals walking. The last one shows blue jeans. So people are assuming that it is some combination of Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and then Brock Lesnar being the last one there with the vision. And I hope not. But I am aware that he's going to be a factor in Survivor Series, so I do suppose that at some point he was going to end up on my television again anyway. But this is, again, a part where Brock Lesnar is getting shoehorned in to a spot where Brock Lesnar doesn't need to be shoehorned in. You make this big move, and I get injuries brought it out. But you make this big move to get Braun and Bronson away from Seth, only to put them back in Brock Lesnar's shadow? I don't want that. Even if it ends in a big moment at War Games, I don't want Brock Lesnar a part of any of these things. Why is he being forced into this when he's not that good to begin with? But still, hopefully we're all wrong, and hopefully we're surprised by what comes of this Boots promo from Monday Night Raw. The second thing that I'm watching for is now the start of the Jey Uso versus CM Punk build. Obviously, the Jey heel turn is not in full effect just yet, but it's getting there. And so I'm interested, the type of character, the type of promo, and the type of response that we get from Jey Uso after eliminating Jimmy, among others, to win the number 1 contender spot against CM Punk at Saturday night's main event. Also, what kind of a tie-in do we get from Drew attacking Jimmy after the Fatu injury? Or is that just splintering them off into a different direction entirely now? So I'm interested to see where things kind of attach, where they don't, all these different things. And CM Punk's involvement in any of it going forward. And then the last one, number 1 contender match, IC title. It is Penta, it is Rusev. Who's going to be the number 1 contender? I said in that whole New Day feud, which didn't seem like it really ended. It's just kind of a thing. I have been saying I want to see Penta elevated. This feud certainly helps that. The one thing that I'm a little on, because I think this match is going to be awesome, is I have no confidence at all that the WWE is going to give us a clean winner here. I think this is going to be set up as a triple threat match. This will be a fun match while it lasts. The triple threat will be fun as well, but I wish that we weren't going into the biggest match of the show on Monday Night Raw with the assumption that we're not going to actually get a winner. That is something that is a standard that they have set, and it's one that is really frustrating for fans. So those are the 3 things that I'm watching for on Monday Night Raw. Did I miss anything? Let me know. Let's move now to a recap of what we saw on Saturday as NXT brought Halloween Havoc back for another year. And things have been a little scary around NXT at times, but I do think that they made a couple good decisions along the way. So it is NXT Halloween Havoc that's now behind us, and a couple of new champions have been crowned. Up first, it was Tatum Paxley as the new NXT Women's Champion. I didn't think they would do this, but I kind of dig it. I don't think Paxley is a finished product by any stretch. When you look at level of in-ring ability, promo ability, all of that, she is not on the level of women's champions of the past, or even the recent past, but she had the promo of her life on Tuesday, best promo of her career, which is admittedly saying more about her past promos than the current one, but she still did a really good job. And then this match was really, really solid as well. And so I get, like, is she Asuka? No. Is this Stephanie Vicaire, Julia? No. But I think it's worth a shot. You already have those established talents moving on. You have some very, very talented humans on this roster. I don't mind giving it a shot. This is still a developmental brand. So develop. And I think we saw JC Jane certainly elevate her game after this. And maybe it just put a spotlight on the elevation and evolution of that character that has been happening for a bit now. But still, you need that kind of a spotlight to show that, oh, hey, this is actually someone who's a viable character. And I think Fatal Influence now, with the changes that have been made, I actually think they're more main roster ready than they were before. And I get that it was pretty callous in how they did it. A girl that's been working there for a while asks for any kind of a raise and they say no and fire her. That sucks. But I do think that the group now, as currently constituted, is ready to go up to the main roster. And I think JC Jane's improvements as a performer, as a wrestler, as a character, all of that really do help that out. And so now Paxley has an opportunity to kind of carry that on and continue to develop her game and show that she is main roster ready. There's also some interesting stories that you can tell with the culling and different things around that as well. So I am very, very interested in what they do now with this particular character and with this particular storyline going forward. Blake Monroe wins the North American Championship. Needed it. We'll get to her in a second. I know the Sol Ruca Zarya breakup is coming, and I don't want it to. I was one of the ones in the beginning who hated the team because Zarya is supposed to be this big monster. She's Godzilla in her her video, and now she's making TikToks and doing all these different things. But it added some personality to her, and it made them very likable. And so I have finally attached to them. I finally have now a connection with them, I feel like. And now we know they're going to break up. And it sucks. And like it storyline, it's going to be great. The matches are going to be a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be really important for Zarya to be able to show some of the depth of her wrestling as a singles performer. And this, that, and the other thing. So this, Blake Monroe winning the North American title, needed it after a subpar feud with Jordan Grace. All of it makes 100% sense, and I understand it fully. I just don't want it to happen because I like these two as a team. I think they're an interesting tag team. I think Sol Ruca is one of the most talented performers in wrestling anywhere, period, right now. And I think Zarya has a very unique look and has potential to be a very good performer as well. And I think that they're a perfect match together. Now, that probably means they'll be perfect as rivals as well. But I just wanted them to have a bit of a longer run with me accepting that this is what their team is as well. So part of it is just I was late to the party. But as it is, again, Blake needed it bad, I think. It's an interesting story. I did think that there could be a story to tell where Zarya wins and defends the title for Sol Ruca, and then you keep playing up the title jealousy aspect that way. But Blake Monroe needed this in a big time way, and I think it sets up a few interesting stories coming out of it. Overall, this was a pretty solid show for NXT. I thought Javon Evans and Leon Slater looked great against Le Parca and Mr. Iguana. I do want to remind everyone, this Le Parca, not the Le Parca you watched in WCW in 1997. Booker T seemed to confuse that on commentary. I don't know how he thought that, and I get where we're at in the world right now, but I saw people being like, man, Le Parca was on wrestling in 1997. That's how he looked. And now he's looking like this. What happened? And immediately, it's Ozempic, bro. It's that Ozempic. Or different human, different person under the mask. It's a mask and a full body suit. I could go under there and you wouldn't know. Yeah, you probably figure it out pretty quick, but you can hide anyone you want under that thing. That's why they did that with the DDP Macho Man thing, and he was Le Parca, and he beat him, and oh my god, and oh, it's actually... Really fun story. But you can do that because you can hide anyone under that fucking thing. And you're not going to know who it was. So I'm very surprised at the amount of people that. Also, there was, not to be crass about it, there was a Leigh Parker who died like a decade ago. And people at that point were going like thoughts and prayers to Leigh Parker, grew up watching him. It's like, again, different dude. I think LA Park in MLW, he left a while ago. He's still wrestling, but he's not that guy anymore. But AAA owns the character, so why not give it a go? They have gone with a couple iterations of this now. But yes, cannot stress enough, that dude who's doing all the stuff and getting hit with flying cutters and all of that is not the same guy who was the chairman of WCW in 1997, getting the bejesus speared out of him by Goldberg. Rant over. Ethan Page continues to show he's main roster ready with a really solid match with El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. He does the WWE style of street fight really, really well and brings a serious to it that a lot of guys don't. And now they let him. He's not out there hitting guys with shillelaghs and stuff like that. But the added drama of ripping the mask and ripping it in a way that it still was kind of, you were a little worried that it could fall off the guy at any point. I know that there are some who find that disrespectful, and I'm sure if he just did that on his own, the reaction from El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. would be different, but also, like, that'd be a shitty thing to do. Seemed like a couple consenting adults in that one, though, so I think it was just great heel work by Ethan Page. I really like, God, it's a mouthful every time. I really like El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., Dr. Wagner Jr. I think there's a presence to him. His in-ring ability is obviously solid. And so he is one of the ones that has been a real nice kind of shining star in this new AAA WWE era that we are in right now. I don't love putting the tag team belts back on Dark State, but I get it because they're going to be sticking around and the Broken Hardys aren't. But getting the Broken Hardys for a match was cool. We got the promo. We got to see the old Hardy compound and all of that. So that was kind of fun to bring that back. I don't think we could do that every week. I think we established that in WWE, but I think this was kind of a cool little throwback, especially for a Halloween Havoc show. But Dark State, I mean, I guess on the one hand, if we are going to hold them to the same standard, I don't think Tatum Paxley is at the level of past champions, but Dark State is just so far behind what we've seen in tag team wrestling in NXT over the years that it's a bit of a bummer right now, but maybe they'll develop into something. And then Ricky Saints retaining. That was the only move against Trick Williams. Honestly, I felt like that was pretty predictable, and I get that these are two kind of main event guys, and you're trying to establish Ricky Saints as such, so you want to put them in the main event. I thought if you were ending with Tatum Paxley winning, I thought they could have main evented with her, and on that good, feel-good moment, because the Saints Trick Williams one, it would have taken a lot to convince me that Trick was going to win that title again. So I think he should move to the main roster now. I think he has developed all he's going to develop in NXT, and I think he's ready now for something. Honestly, if I'm wrong on the Brock thing and he's one of the shoes in the promos for tonight, or the teases for tonight, would love it. Absolutely would love it, because the kid's main roster ready 100% right now. So that's my breakdown of NXT Halloween Havoc. And that is the show. Thank you all so much for hanging out, coming up on 2 hours of the stream. Thanks to my wife, who's just been sitting here working in the dark for the last 2 hours. So a thank you to her. A thank you to my cats and dogs for waiting outside when their favorite is in here with me. So thank you guys so much for hanging out today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. Get this great Calgary swag. Get the Jerome shirts right now. I know the hockey team sucks, but it'll remind you of better days with Jerome McGinley. Or remind you of why rebuilds are necessary, because definitely needed to get that guy someone better to play with over the last little while. But thank you guys so much. We're fueled by Swift Energy. SwiftEnergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimeTime for 25% off. We'll be back here tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, looking at fantasy football waiver wire, looking at the dumpster darlings, looking at what happened on Monday Night Football, WWE Raw, but as Toxic said, I'm sure PK will totally be watching Raw tonight instead of Game 3 of the World Series. No, we're going to be breaking down Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, here, wherever you're watching this. We're going to be doing it there. So have a great rest of your day. Go Jays! We'll talk again tomorrow.